Hey, what is up guys? My name is Oleg, this is Bond, welcome back to the channel. And if you're new to the channel and like the content, please subscribe. So it's finally here. It's finally time for me to review Didun Design's AP Royal Oak Homage. I gotta tell you, since I did the unboxing of this watch, I got so many requests, so many comments of people actually waiting for the full review. So here it is. Didun Design's AP Royal Oak Homage. Let's start the review by looking at the dimensions. It has a diameter of 42 millimeters, a thickness of 12 millimeters, a lug width of 25 millimeters that tapers down to about 18 millimeters at the clasp, and it's 52 millimeters from lug to lug. However, the widest points on the bracelet are about 64-65 millimeters from this point here to this point here. So this watch is a pretty big watch, 42 millimeters. In my opinion, that's not a small watch, and it wouldn't fit necessarily smaller wrists, especially the way this bracelet is designed. The way that it kind of rounds off here. If you have a wrist of under about 6 inches, maybe 6¼ inches, I think the watch would be simply too big for you. You would have large gaps between your wrist and the way the bracelet curves out. Taking a closer look at this case, we have an all stainless steel case with a stainless steel bracelet. The finishing on a case is done really well. We have pretty much all of the finishing brushed except for some beveling here. So the bevel on this bezel is polished, as well as the bevel on the lugs is also polished. So it just gives it a little bit of shine, just that little pop of light, of extra reflection on the case. In my opinion, the finishes of this watch are some of its strongest features. The design is of course great because this is a copy of AP Royal Oak, and that watch is iconic for a very good reason. It's a great sort of timeless design. First of all, let's start with this bezel. So the bezel reflects light really well. In different lighting conditions, it almost looks like a mirror polish, but it's not. It's brushed. But again, just in different lighting conditions, in different angles, when the sun hits it, it just lights up the whole watch. It's amazing. Another thing that I really like about this watch and about the design is the different shapes that are all incorporated into kind of a simplistic design. They all work really well. It looks very industrial, looks very rough. It was kind of inspired by the old diving helmets that they used for deep sea diving. That's why you have all these screws on the bezel, and that's the kind of the overall idea behind the design. So all the different shapes are incorporated into this design really well. So we have a sapphire crystal at the front here, and probably a some sort of mineral crystal at the back. The back is of course stainless steel, so we have a stainless steel case back, and these screws are what's holding the case back in place. So the watch resistance of the watch is only 30 meters, and my guess, it's largely due to this case back. It's not a screw down case back, and that kind of takes away from the overall water resistance. We also have a screw down crown at the 3 o'clock. The crown has this octagon shape as well, and it is a signed crown with the Didun Designs logo etched in. It's done really well. However, because of the shape of this crown, it's not that easy to operate. There is a very good reason why all the crowns are rounded. So when you hand wind the watch, that's what the hand winding sounds like. It's not the smoothest operation. Now, the movement in this watch, originally what I thought it was a Miyota A215 movement, because on the Aliexpress page, if you remember from my unboxing, they said it was a Miyota Japanese movement, but they spelled Miyota with a D, so Miyota. Now, of course, this is not a Miyota movement, or is it a Japanese movement? What we have here is a Seagull ST6. Pretty good movement, actually. I don't know why they chose to lie about the movement or kind of mislead people about the movement, because It's not bad. I mean, it's not a great movement. It's not, you know, Miyota 9015, but it's pretty good. I mean, it gets the job done. So the movement is hand windable, as I demonstrated earlier, and it is also hacking, as you can see right now. The seconds hand stopped ticking. Now, one negative that I have with this movement, and maybe it's just my watch only, when you push down the crown, you can see that the minutes hand sometimes jumps. You can see that. Now, while we're on the subject of the movement, I'm getting about 40 seconds plus per day from this watch right now. That's a combination of it being on the wrist and sitting on my desk, and also doing some sporting activities. Like, for example, when I measured the accuracy of the watch, in those days I also played tennis while wearing it, and went for a little bike ride while wearing it. So it's a combination of activities, just being regular, walking around with Bond and things like that, washing dishes, and having it on my desk and having it in the watch box. So the average was about 40 seconds fast per day. In my experience, 40 seconds fast is a bit too much of a deviation. Ideally, I'd want it not more than 20 seconds, but it's okay. I mean, it's a $75 watch, and from my understanding, it is pretty easy to regulate these movements if you wanted to. I'm just not into regulating movements. I'm always afraid that I'm going to screw it up. A few more things about this movement. It beats at 21,600 beats per hour. It is 17 joules, and it has a power reserve of about 30 hours. And from my experience, I'm getting roughly around 30 hours of power reserve out of this watch right now. Taking a closer look at this dial, and you can see how well they copied the AP Royal Oak. It has that waffle texture that Royal Oak is so known for. It has applied indices for all the hour markings, and it also has a running minute track. The hands are well done. They are kind of metallic. Even the seconds hand is metallic, which makes it very easy to tell exactly what time it is, because the contrast between the dial and the hands is so great, so you can tell pretty much from every angle at just one glance at the watch exactly what time it is. The hands and the indices are also loomed. I'll pop a loom shot on the screen right now. As you can see, the loom is pretty good and it actually surprised me. However, it doesn't last very long, so expect about 4 to 5 hours of loom. Taking a closer look at this bracelet, and it's done really well. They did a good job of copying the original. It looks complicated yet simple. It reflects light really well because all of these links are pretty much flat, so the way light shines on them is very interesting, and when you wear it in the sun, it just looks amazing. It reflects light really well, and the bracelet is actually very comfortable. When you look at the watch, and when you look at the way it's designed and the way it looks very rough, it looks very industrial, it looks like a robot watch. This doesn't look comfortable at all, but it actually is. It's a comfortable watch to wear, and the bracelet is a big part of the reason why it is so comfortable to wear. I don't have very hairy wrists, and none of my watches really pull out any hairs, but I wouldn't be surprised if this watch sometimes would catch hairs if your wrists are a little bit hairier. The clasp is done really well. Also, it's a double deployant pusher's clasp, so you have to kind of fold one end over the other, and there's even a logo here, and also logos etched on the inside of this clasp. So I have no complaints with the clasp. The only complaint that I would have with this bracelet is actually the fact that it is a bit sharp. So when you run your fingers through the links, when you run your fingers at the edges, it does feel sharp. It doesn't feel as well engineered, as rounded off as I'd like it to be. But of course, at $75, you can't be expecting a really high level of finishes on this bracelet. I'm surprised at the level that I did get this watch at, and getting it to a higher level, of course, would cost a lot more money. There are a lot of good
and positive things about this watch. However, the watch is not perfect, so let me point out some of the negatives that I found with the watch. The very first negative, as I mentioned, was the fact that this bracelet is a bit sharp. It's not as refined as it could be. The second negative is the fact that the dial, in my opinion, is a little slanted. So just look at the 4 o'clock and this screw, and 8 o'clock and this screw, and you can see that the distance between them is a bit different. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The third negative is the quality control issue. So you can see here under the crystal by 12 o'clock, it looks like there is almost a hair. Now that's not a hair, that is probably a metal chafing. So when they were fitting the crystal or maybe polishing the inside of the dial or the bezel, I don't know how, but they left that part in, and my watch is probably the only one that has it. And again, once you see it, you can't unsee it, and it does bother me a little bit. The fourth negative I have about the watch is actually the movement. The Seagull ST6 is not a terrible movement, but 40 seconds plus per day is a bit extreme. It's a bit too much for my liking. I know I can adjust that and it's fine, but I just wish they kind of regulated it a little bit more right off the box. Again, not a huge complaint for a watch for 75 bucks, but this is a review, so I have to mention that. And while we're still on the subject of the movement, the kind of negative that I mentioned before is the fact that, again, when I push down the crown, you can see that that minutes hand is kind of jumping, and it becomes a bit annoying every time you try to set the time that the minutes hand jumps. And it doesn't jump all the time, but it jumps from time to time. So again, I'm not sure if it's just my watch or other watches have the same thing. So if you have the same watch, please leave a comment in the comment section below. Let me know if yours does the same thing. So my final negative of this watch is the fact that it's a very heavy homage. Now, this negative is not a real negative. I just have to mention it because I know that a lot of you guys are thinking that. So this watch has left many divisive comments on my unboxing video. Some people really liked it. Some people enjoyed this design. Some people like the fact that they homaged or copied this design so closely. I wouldn't call it a homage, it's a copy, guys. That they copied the design so closely that they replicated so many different elements. And to me, that is amazing. If you have ever been on Craigslist, I know that's a dark place to go to, but you can see a lot of these AP Royal Oak fakes or replicas, and they go for around 400 bucks, 350 bucks, 500 bucks. So they're not cheap watches to replicate. They're not cheap watches to fake. So the fact that they could get this homage in the price range of $75 is really amazing, especially with the sapphire crystal included. I know sapphire is not that expensive, but it does cost more than a regular mineral crystal. So it's just amazing that they could get this level of finishes, this level of detail in under $100 price range. However, they did copy too much. They copied the design completely. So if you are not on board with this sort of homage, with this sort of copy, this watch is certainly not for you. When I purchased this watch, I didn't buy it in order to trick anyone into thinking that this is a real AP Royal Oak, because that's ridiculous. First of all, 99% of the people in the world have no idea what the real AP Royal Oak even looks like, and the 1% that actually do know what it looks like will never be tricked by Didun Design's watch into thinking that it's a real AP. It just won't happen. So buying it to trick someone is a ridiculous proposition. The reason why I bought this watch is because I really love the design, and I don't have the money to or the desire to spend $30,000 on the real thing. And I think that we right now live in amazing times where we have access to internet, and we have access to these manufacturers and websites like Aliexpress, where they offer these amazing iconic designs, and the watches are actually pretty good at $75. I mean, 15 years ago, or maybe even 10 years ago, this was a dream. This wasn't possible. The watch enthusiasts and watch collectors of that time, did not have an option to buy a watch like this. If you wanted AP Royal Oak, you had to buy AP Royal Oak. However, now it's kind of a beautiful time to be a watch collector because you have so many options. So what are my closing thoughts on this watch? Why did it take me so long to review it? Well, I just wanted to make sure that I actually do like it. Because I do like it, but I didn't want to make this review too early, let's say 2 weeks into owning the watch, because not enough time has passed and you don't know yet whether you really like the watch or you're still in that honeymoon phase. However, now, about a month later, I still find that I reach for this watch very often. I am excited to wear it, especially when it's sunny outside and I wear it on my wrist and it kind of reflects the different colors in the dial. Sometimes looks almost black, sometimes it looks baby blue, sometimes it looks navy blue. It really plays with the light really well. The way the bezel reflects the sun rays, and the watch is actually done really well. I'm not kind of embarrassed or ashamed to wear it where it looks like a cheap piece of crap. It feels like a pretty good quality watch, and if you didn't know much about watches, you would price this watch probably somewhere around maybe $300-400. And to be honest, if you didn't know much about watches and you looked at the real AP Royal Oak, you'd probably price it somewhere around $500 to $600. That's just my opinion. You might disagree. You might say that looks like a $30,000 watch. I just don't think so. And I think that's the strongest point of that watch, but that's a totally different conversation. So anyways, the watch does look more expensive than it actually is. I enjoy wearing it. And I don't like to tell you on this channel whether you should buy something or not, but I will say this: I don't regret buying it. I wear it kind of all the time now. It's part of my collection. I don't think this watch will be leaving my collection anytime soon. And if you like the design, if you like the look, if you would be excited to wear a watch like this, I don't think you will be disappointed. All right, and here's what the watch looks like on my 7¼ inch wrist. It is a thin watch. It's not as thin as the original. Original, I think, is around 7 or 8 millimeters. This is 12, so it's thicker, but it's not that bad, and it actually hugs the wrist really well. Again, there are slight gaps here, but not too much. It fits my wrist size pretty much perfectly. All right, guys, so that was the review of Didun Design's AP Royal Oak Homage. I hope you enjoyed the video. My feelings towards the watch are very positive. It does have some shortcomings, it does have some quality control issues, so just be aware of that before you purchase one. However, I don't regret buying it, and if I had a choice, I would buy it again. That's all I'm gonna say. Appreciate you watching until the end. Please let me know if you want me to do a review of that Peter Lee, the Patek Philippe Nautilus Homage watch. I did get quite a few comments about that watch, but I'm just not sure if I should do another homage that's very similar to this watch, or maybe that money and that time and effort is invested better into a different watch, because of course for every watch that I review, I don't review a different watch that I could review. Very philosophical, I know. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time.